A very good evening. You're watching India Global. I'm Gaurie Dwivedi. As always, we start the show with headlines coming in. First up, confession surprises no one. India shreds Pakistan at the United Nations over the Pahalgam terrorist attack. Prime Minister Modi chairs a high-level meeting with Defence Minister, National Security Advisor and Chief of Defence Staff and all chiefs of the armed forces at his residence. 70 dead and over 1,200 people injured as Iran blames negligence for Saturday's blast at country's largest container port. Bangladesh faces 15,000 crore taka crisis as the Central Bank of Bangladesh halts circulation of notes with Mujibur Rahman's image. Vatican announces the papal conclave that will choose the successor of Pope Francis. It is all set to start from the 7th of May. The big story on the show, viewers. India has raised the Pahalgam terrorist attack, which killed 26 civilians, at the United Nations, calling Pakistan a rogue state after its defense minister openly confessed to supporting terrorism. And in fact, that Khwaja Asif admission on and in front of global media puts the case, India's case, to rest completely. In fact, UN Ambassador Yojna Patel urged the global community to act against Pakistan, saying the world can no longer turn a blind eye. Meanwhile, Pakistani troops have violated the ceasefire along the line of control for the 5th consecutive night, prompting a very measured, effective response from the Indian Army in areas including Kupwara, Baramulla and Akhnur. In fact, back home, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh has briefed Prime Minister Modi on security measures following the meetings with top military officials. The Pahalgam terrorist attack, which has been the deadliest since the 26/11 Mumbai attacks, has killed 26 people, 25 tourists and a local Kashmiri. It marks a grim chapter in Kashmir post the abrogation of Article 317 2019 and the elections that took place later. The Congress party has demanded a special parliament session emphasizing unity and solidarity in the face of terrorism. Prime Minister Modi, meanwhile, will chair a crucial cabinet committee on security that will take place on Wednesday morning, the second such meeting since the Pahalgam terrorist attack took place. The first CCS meeting was held just after he touched down in New Delhi, cutting short his visit to Saudi Arabia. In a major move, the centre has already suspended the Indus Water Treaty with Pakistan. It's one of the 5 key decisions that have been taken at the last meeting. What happens next remains to be seen, and that's exactly why our top story is how the UN is now going to be at the centre of how India has shredded Pakistan's claims. The big questions, as always, on our big story. First up, how long can the international community ignore Pakistan's open terror confessions? Secondly, does Khwaja Asif's statement confirm what India has been warning the world all along? Third question that we are asking, is Pakistan's credibility at the United Nations permanently, irreparably damaged after their own defense minister's terror admission in front of global media? Next, when will Pakistan be sanctioned for state-sponsored terrorism? Remember, he is not exporting terror only to India. If he is at the fountainhead of terrorism and at the fountainhead of these terror factories, they are going to export terror globally. And that is why it matters to everybody. Harsh Pant, Vice President of ORF, will join me in a bit. But first up, I want to get in Ambassador Achal Malhotra to talk more about the impact of India's very clear messaging at the United Nations. Ambassador Malhotra, in no uncertain terms, India told the world what it has been facing for the last 30 years. It shredded Pakistan and its false arguments at United Nations. How do you see this? What do you expect from here on?
Good evening, Gaurie. Thank you for getting me on your channel. First of all, I would like to say that this is not for the first time that we have named and shamed Pakistan and exposed Pakistan. At the UN or other international bodies, we have been doing that. I even to quote just one example, the former Foreign Minister Sushma Swaraj, Srimati Sushma Swaraj, had in so many words said at the UN General Assembly that while India has been producing engineers and doctors, Pakistan has been producing terrorists. So it's a factory of terrorism. There is a global awareness that Pakistan is the epicenter of terrorism, and what their defense minister has admitted, I mean, said is an admission, a frank admission. But he has very cleverly qualified by saying it that they were all doing it on behalf of the Western countries, the Americans and the other Western countries. They were pursuing their interests without mentioning the fact that they were getting, extracting billions of dollars from them for doing this job, and they are,
The
paying
other
for it
aspect,
also.
sir, the other aspect that I want to
Yeah,
ask you on is the fact that this is admission in front of global media and something that India has been saying all along. It has said so
exactly,
at the United Nations, and
exactly.
Pahalgam terror attack has been the most dastardly terror attack in almost ever since 2611. What do you think the international community should now do? Because as I say, when Pakistan exports terror, India is one of the victims, but not the only victim. The world needs to act.
The world needs to act. That's the biggest issue. I mean, theoretically, yes. After this admission from Pakistan, openly in public, they should act against Pakistan. The least they can do is, once again look at the possibility of putting it in the blacklist or the grey list of the financial, uh, that FATA has, Action Task Force. There are other ways of, even if, the least they can do is pressurize to stop this nonsense. But unfortunately, the UN is, even if it is not a in a
Points.
state of
Let's talk of the
paralysis.
pressure points, sir. What do you
Yeah,
think are the pressure points here?
Financial Action Task Force is one. Putting sanctions is yet another way of doing it, and persuasion, of course, is also there. But the military establishment is very, very unlikely to get persuaded. So we have the 25 times the International Monetary Fund has bailed out Pakistan. So stop funding, stop providing aid, or if you're providing aid, ask them to account for it, cent by cent. Is it being utilized for the purposes it has been given, or is it being diverted elsewhere? So tighten from all angles, unless you tighten, the loop
So Pakistan was
around Pakistan.
blacklisted at the FATF a few years back. It got out of it. It got into the grey list. It's got bailouts since then.
Yeah.
Because some of these agencies, these multilateral agencies also have China and some of its others and some of other Pakistan backers. So what do you think India's course should be to be able to ensure justice for the Pahalgam terror attack and at the same time ensure that the fountainhead of terrorism, global terrorism, which is Pakistan, which stands completely exposed, should pay for it?
Well, Gaurie, there are multi-pronged approaches. We can expose Pakistan. We have been doing it. There is already awareness about it. But at the end of the day, we will have to handle it our own selves. Because as far as international organizations are concerned, we have already mentioned what I was about to say about the China factor. Even at the UN Security Council resolution, which has been passed recently after the Pahalgam attack, China and also Pakistan, by virtue of being non-permanent member of the UN Security Council at this point of time, they have been able to dilute it. So, on international, and let me tell you, I mean, despite the fact that we have a global comprehensive strategic partnership with the United States of America, United States of America still have some vested interest in engaging Pakistan. Particularly, they want to use some bases
Right.
in Balochistan to keep an eye on the Afghanistan and the other parts of the region.
It's a
So
complex
we have to
story with
factor,
many
yeah, with the
aspects
way,
to it, but at the
yeah,
same time, for India, the
yes.
primary focus, objective, and purpose is around ensuring that the global terror factories that are being run out of, on Pakistani soil have been exposed by their own defence minister. Professor Pant, what should be India's next course of action? We've shredded Pakistan at the United Nations. What should be our next course?
I think, Gaurie, our next course will have to be to tighten the screws using other multilateral forums as well, which we have done successfully in the last few years as well. So we have to continue with that, with that agenda forward. But certainly, at the end of the day, some kind of kinetic action will also be required because the costs for Pakistan of behaving in a certain manner has to rise, and we know that the last red line that we had drawn with the Uri strikes, post-Uri strikes, and then with the Balakot air strikes, that those red lines have been altered. So I think in the new logic of deterrence across the LOC will have to be established once again, and therefore some kind of kinetic means will be needed. India will have to do it, assuming that it will do it on its own. We also know that Pakistan has friends like China who, despite saying all the nice things, have not really supported India when it came to the crunch. So I do think that there are issues which are very serious for India to take into account, both in terms of balance of power along the border areas, but also in terms of global balance of power, which has to be taken into account if you decide to go in for kinetic action. But I do think that multiplicity of options will have, as India is doing, gradually building up pressure, will have to go towards a logical conclusion of not only revealing what Pakistan has and has been doing, but also taking into account what capabilities India has.
Professor Pant, the biggest pressure point right now for Pakistan and Pakistani army is the fact that its economy is almost belly up, and I think that is where it would probably hurt the most, wouldn't it?
Absolutely, and I think we know that the economic situation is very grim, and we also know that China, for all the all-weather friendship that it espouses with China, with Pakistan, has not really been the economic benefactor that many in Pakistan had hoped for. So I think by and large, this idea that Pakistan will come to China's aid all the time has not really been borne by the facts on the ground, especially on economic matters, where China tends to be very calculating. So I do think that there is an opportunity for India to go for the jugular in that sense, which is the Pakistani economy, and ensure that Pakistani capacity to do damage, more damage, to do mischief is limited because of the pressure on the economy, which I think gradually, if you look at the Indus Water Treaties being put in abeyance, that is where India intends perhaps to go, because that also hurts Pakistan's economy in fundamental ways. So I do think that that's the escalation ladder India would be thinking of climbing.
And very quickly, before we wrap this up, which is that as things stand right now, India is also preparing a whole host of possible measures, economic, diplomatic and others as well. Professor Pant, the fact that Pakistan's defence minister stands completely exposed, do you think it will allow a larger grouping to come together, alliance to come together against Pakistan and act on it, because terror knows no boundaries?
I think, Gaurie, one of the things that India has been very successful in mobilizing global public opinion against Pakistan over the last few decades. And I do think that needs to be activated, because we know that a lot of the countries are sympathetic at this point, and we also know that often such sympathies don't last very long. We have seen in the case of Israel, for example, when the terrible incident happened and with the Hamas terror attacks, the world rallied around Israel. But very soon as Israel started taking action and moved forward, a lot of that support dissipated. So I think India will have to build on this momentum, this moment that it has, where a lot of the countries are with India, they stand with India, and as you mentioned, Pakistan's own working, its own statements are revealing the vulnerabilities of Pakistan, the weaknesses of Pakistan, and the shenanigans of Pakistan. So in that sense, I think we have a moment which we need to build on and build that coalition and ask that coalition to work and take specific, direct and concrete actions against Pakistan.
All right, let's leave it there. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on this edition of India Global. Well, viewers, bottom line really is that when a wolf sheds its sheep's clothing, the truth howls louder than ever. Pakistan's defence minister has spilled the beans, an open confession of decades of terror sponsorship. No one's shocked, but now the world hears it from the horse's mouth. India isn't mincing words at the United Nations, calling Pakistan what it is, a rogue state fueling chaos while crying foul. This isn't just a slip of tongue, it's smoking gun. For too long, the global community has looked the other way, but after the bloodbath in Pahalgam, the writings on the wall, turning a blind eye now means having blood on your hands. This time, the mask has truly slipped and there's no hiding behind it anymore. I'm going to take a very short break, come back on the other side, talk more about the blast in Iran and what could be the possible reason, since the Iranian government is yet to find one. Stay with us. In southern Iran, tragedy has engulfed the Shahid Rajaji airport. A deadly blast on Saturday shattered the quiet of Bandar Abbas, leaving at least 70 people dead and more than 1,200 people injured in a smoldering crater of unanswered questions. Iran's interior minister has admitted that negligence, which is a fatal cocktail of ignored safety rules and unregistered cargo, could be the reason. Officials have been summoned, but accountability still remains buried under the rubble, or so it seems. Nearly two-thirds of the port lies in ruin, charred by flames that raged for days. Authorities deny military links, brushing off claims of missile fuel, but foreign intelligence says otherwise. It could be a known propellant for ballistic weapons may have sparked this catastrophe. One shipping firm calls it a catastrophic error, other calls it a ticking time bomb that finally went off. As the smoke lifts over Bandar Abbas, the world watches Iran scramble to explain while families mourn, questions burn, and truth struggles to surface from the ashes. Which is why we are discussing what could have happened, and more importantly, are there ports worldwide that are at risk, that are vulnerable to something like this happening? Syed Tamjeed Haider, who's a former PRO of Iran consulate and an expert on affairs of this region, joins me to talk more about this. Mr. Haider, what is troubling is A, there are still no confirmed answers days after this attack took place.
Yeah, hello everyone. Thank you for inviting. Actually, the spokesperson for the Ministry of Defence just today, it has firmly denied the claims and the rumors that the shipments were carrying military fuel. And he has given the reason for this, that military entities use their own dedicated ports, and there were no military or fuel shipments in the affected area. And he said that one of the emerging hypotheses is that the importing companies may have tried to reduce custom costs by not accurately declaring the hazardous nature of the materials. And although this claim is still under investigation, if proven true, it could be one of the main causes of the incident, which is mentioned to be negligence on part of the importing companies as well as some of the officials at the port.
How do ports around the world, countries around the world, brace themselves for reducing such catastrophic errors? Because what could have happened here, do you think it could happen at other places? What's the bulwark available?
This reminds me of the 2020 Beirut port explosion, which was a similar kind of explosion, but five folds more. It was around 1,000 tons of TNT explosion. It was there, and this is compared to be around 200 tons of explosion. Actually, the ports like Rajai port, which is one of the largest ports of Iran, which handles around 70 million tons of cargo annually, and it is ranked at 44th position in the 3,500 major ports in the world. So it's a very sensitive and important port in the region, and this shows that the negligence caused by some of the importing companies in not declaring the exact nature of the imported products and storage conditions and all that can affect any port, especially the ports which are sensitive and which cater to these hazardous and dangerous materials.
Do you think there has to be some sort of a greater focus on putting some of this as SOPs? Because this is very disconcerting facts and very troubling events that have unfolded, bringing also and raising concerns that if this falls into malicious hands, the impact could be even more than what it is right now?
Exactly. That is what it was discussed. Even the Iranian customs has laid out some immediate guidelines for the for the important companies after this fire incident. That yesterday, the Iranian customs have said that the 6 major judicial orders have been issued since the blast, and which includes to identify and legally address the cargo which is coming to Iran, as well as the manifesto and manifestation of the cargo. It has to be produced well before the authorities, and authorities has to submit the same to the legal entities to verify if the importing cargo includes any such hazardous items, and what is the nature, and the main important thing is the storage facility which has to be catered. And there are some of the companies who import these hazardous materials. They tend to neglect the storage conditions due to their due to the high cost, and due to high cost by not accurately declaring the hazardous nature, and by omitting this detail they could avoid paying for special storage fees. So this needs to be controlled, and the judicial orders have come to identify and legally address any potential culprits even involved in the incident, and special measures to be provided to support and attend to
Okay.
the port
All right.
infrastructure and the authorities, and to ensure
All
transparent
right.
and accurate public communication to spread the rumor.
All right, let's leave it there.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me on that important story with global ramifications. Shifting focus now, the throne of St. Peter sits empty, and the eyes of 1.4 billion believers turn to the Sistine Chapel. With the passing of Pope Francis, the church now enters its most sacred and secretive ritual, the conclave. Behind locked doors, beneath Michelangelo's frescoed ceiling, 135 cardinal electors will begin their silent, cloistered task, which is choosing the 267th leader of the Roman Catholic Church. No phones, no media, no outside world. Prayer, tradition and ballots counted by candlelight. 4 votes a day. Black smoke signals no decision. Only when the white smoke declares that the world has a new pope, which is Habemus Papam. I hope I got that right. This is not just a vote, it's a spiritual reckoning, a moment that could reshape the church for generations. Will the new pontiff be a reformer or a traditionalist or a surprise from the margins? In a world yearning for moral clarity, the conclave is not just about succession, it's about the soul of the church itself. And soon, from behind centuries-old walls, the future of Catholicism will emerge, one puff of smoke at a time.